Because as you said, I mean, more and more people are entering the system. And so I just looked at some numbers yesterday, and I was amazed to see that. So I just looked at some numbers in the Netherlands and worldwide, but they resemble each other very well. Is that since 2000 until now, for example, it's an insane amount of new PhD students that come in and that also graduate, which is crazy. I mean, the system, at least as far as I experienced it, universities are structures that, when it comes to, I would say bachelor levels, it's well organized. You can have a certain volume that you can teach. But when it comes to PhD students, because that PhD is such a personal relationship and work environment that you have to have with your supervisor, you cannot have one supervisor with 20 PhD students and expect the same type of quality. It's just time-wise, that's impossible.
Exactly.
And no, I agree with you that, I mean, something needs to shift. Also, I mean, you mentioned that the postdoc was created. I didn't know that. When I first heard the term assistant and associate professor and then full professor, I only knew about the full professor. So to me, it sounded like, oh, okay, these two are also sort of like added on as intermediate steps
They most certainly were.
Yeah, exactly.
And the postdoc would be one of them as well.
Right.
And then you can add senior researchers and so on.
Yeah. And then I have, what did I hear? Aspiring PI at some point as well. That's another one. And I'm just wondering, how necessary is it to just cling on to this old system and just use duct tape all the time? Or just, let it go and come up with something better, because the people that are in the system, they are obviously smart.
Yeah.
So there should be some type of way. And when you mentioned Bell Labs and NASA, and then I'm thinking, okay, these are excellent research departments, excellent, and where I would say theoretical and applied work are mixed. Is there something we can get from them?
I would say yes.
And how did they normally? Because I don't know. How did they normally structure that type of work?
Well, I admit I don't know myself how these structure, but there are new examples of these kinds of things. So one thing I would say is that these types of organizations, unlike academia, I think are better able to define their mission and their vision and their values, which is something that you really, really get from looking at it into an MBA program. So if you have, and that's something that research can think about, right? So if you think of a typical country, the country as and this is very interesting for me, is a country wants PhDs, right? That's what the evidence shows. So we want PhDs. Why do we want PhDs? Well, for my best guess is because the country knows that in the future there's artificial intelligence coming, there's automation, labor is expensive in the Western world. So manufacturing is changing, farming is changing. So we're moving to a knowledge economy, and generating PhDs seems like a really good bet for a knowledge economy, right? So that means that a country is interested in creating knowledgeable people. It's not so interested, as far as I can tell, in supporting an older academic model so that everybody can become assistant, associate, and professor because they like to, right? So I think that's something that we as more junior scientists need to understand, is that we can't, the purpose of giving us a PhD is not so that we can all have our dream jobs according to an academic model. That's not the point, right? Then the idea would be is that these creative people can move in different directions, right? So they can move towards industry, they can move towards startups, some can stay in academia, and hopefully, as you say, maybe these creative people will create new organizations potentially. So Bell Labs, NASA, these clearly are places that are unified around some sort of common topic. But I would assume, well, certainly in the case of NASA, it was, when I think of NASA, I think of Kennedy's mission. We're putting a man on the moon by the end of the decade, right? So academia doesn't have that, right?
No.
And one of the things you can think about is if there's a country that has a Netherlands or Canada or something, there's something, there's in the tens to 20s of large academic research institutes. They each have hospitals, they each have engineering schools, they each have these kinds of things. They have to serve the country. They have to also serve the region. But they don't necessarily have to serve only a academic model, right? So you can, I would say, in the future, I imagine there will be, and I hope there is, more dedicated research institutes around a specific topic, for instance. More ways of saying, what does this region need? What do we need to focus on, this kind of thing? And it's not a replacement of the academic system. It's an addition to the academic system. It's a separate way of doing research.
Yeah.
And I think that's I could see that being the larger goal of a country, right? Which is why they generate PhD students, which is why they have grants now to collaborate with industry, which is why they also have grants for startups, right? And they're moving their money into different directions besides supporting everyone to become traditional professors.